Hey everybody, Aaron Stinner here. We have the episode I have been trying to record probably for 15 years, and I'm really excited to dive in today. We have James Bellerue with us, who is our lead painter and designer here at Stinner. And I can't tell you how many times we've been in a room together where we're like, we just need to record this and let everybody hear it. And we're here today to finally record that episode. So looking forward to having you guys with us, and let's get started. Mr. Bellerue, welcome. I know a lot about you, and we've been working together for 15 years, 10 years, 2015. So 11 years. And I know a lot about you, but our audience doesn't. So maybe you can just give us a quick intro of who you are, what you do here, and yeah.
As Aaron said, I've been the person behind Finish for a little over a decade now with Stinner. My name's James Bellerue, and I was born in Thousand Oaks, California.
How'd you get into bikes?
I would say I knew how to ride a bike just like everybody most of my life, but I didn't really get into them until college, basically commuting around town. The art school I went to was kind of spread out as far as the campus, so it made a lot of sense to commute by bike instead of parking. And I, kind of being mechanically minded, just went down the rabbit hole of all the little variations a bicycle can be.
Nice. And you worked in a bike shop in college.
I eventually worked my way up into a bike shop and was the service manager there for several bike shops, a total of about 8 years. Loved the interface of the clients with trying to dial the bike for them, the experience they were wanting to have. It just sucked me in and ended up going down that rabbit hole instead of pursuing a true art degree or art or career.
Yeah, but you went to art school, got into bikes in art school. Mm-hmm. Where'd you go to school? What did you study?
I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. Ultimately, I bounced around a little bit, started out in videography, moved over into photography, got like 3/4 of a degree in photography, and then got pulled into motion graphics, and that turned into a new world for me. I loved just keyframes and animation and just structuring out these huge projects.
Cool.
So that's what I graduated in, was motion graphics.
Okay. So you said Savannah, Georgia, moved out west, came back where you were born from, landed back in Santa Barbara. And we met through, was I working still at the bike shop, or?
You weren't managing anymore.
Okay.
I think you were moonlighting, trying to get Stinner off the ground, and you're basically just doing fits at night. Yeah. And we'd bump into each other occasionally. It was that era of cyclocross bikes didn't have disc brakes yet.
Okay. This is date it. We'll just date it based on what brakes people were using at any given time.
Well, I mentioned that because I think that's how I kind of got my foot in the door with you, is I was really begging you to let me work for trade to maybe build a disc cross bike.
Okay. Yeah, so back prior to those. Okay, so I remember that. I think that frame is still hanging around. I don't even know if that one.
Yeah, we never built that frame.
So, and that's how I kind of remember us meeting, was through the shop, and you were looking to learn a little bit more, help out. I mean, I think I was intrigued in having somebody, with a different skill set and different mindset kind of come into the shop and help out. One of the things that I always struggled with getting into, what do we call this, a profession or anything? I mean, I stumbled into it mostly just to learn more. I think that's how a lot of people get into it. And went to UBI, come back, and I never had an opportunity to work under somebody else. And not that I was any kind of, at that point in time was 2014. Maybe I had been kind of putzing around with it for maybe a few years, but I wasn't in any way a master builder at that point in time.
I think maybe you had gotten your Rookie of the Year thing.
Okay, yeah, I got that in 2012. So then I was in the garage. We were still in the garage, only building bikes. We weren't painting then. I was in the garage. I think I had tried powder coating at some point in time, but other than that, it was really bare bones. I think it was an interesting trajectory and where I was with Stinner, which always seems to be the case. But growing it and trying to figure out how to get out of the garage. John Jones at that point in time, he and I were working together a little more closely. John was building all the wheels for us. And then, yeah, I mean, you and I had met, you were kind of helping out when I needed help. I think the other thing that's hard too is like when I was moonlighting as a mechanic and then trying to find time for somebody in the shop, and then you're like, I need to be building, but then I'm also trying to like teach somebody something, and I think we've all struggled with that. I mean, I still, to this day, it's like we get emails about internships, and I'm like, what do I do with that? Now I have to like give this person things to do, and like all of a sudden it's consuming my time. But I'd love to get to that point eventually again where I can like mentor or just give advice or whatever it is. But I think we both struggled with that. It's like your timing, me finding things for you to do. How does that work? And then John and I had found a first shop space out on Arrow Camino. Started like, I mean, I think when we started, we had 1 bay or 2 bays. It was like 800 square feet with like a little entryway. And kind of one of the big things for me, well, I didn't know it at the time, but when we moved into the shop, originally just moved everything out of the garage and just moved into like another garage, but slightly different. It was like the same square footage, but just jamming everything back into.
It wasn't a garage attached to your house. So
yeah, exactly. It was
different.
a garage somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I got to drive to a separate garage. And yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that was always painful and has always been super painful for any builder getting started is like, I think you dive in as a builder and you're like, want to cut metal, you want to learn how to weld, you want to like get the frame together. And there's all this process and beauty in doing that, but it's much more of an engineering type approach than it is like, I think it's what's cool about handmade is that like there is this like meld of like, there's craft and there's art, but then there's also functionality. And I've always come at it in a much more functional way because have a bike racing background and like I want the thing to perform. And I'm worried about form and shape, but probably
function is form.
Function is a primary for me, and just making sure that is like there, and then design kind of follows suit. And one of the struggles that a lot of those builders have is eventually it's like, oh, I got to finish this thing and I got to make it look good. And who's going to do that for me? And as we know, and we've talked about even on, some of our other YouTube videos, is that industry is, bicycle manufacturing in the US is basically non-existent for the most part. And it's like very disjointed. And back then it was like Spectrum powder was like the one spot that you could go, and that's who I was using for finishing. But you'd you'd hustle to get a customer's bike done, and then you'd ship it off, and then you just never knew when it was coming back. And some of the things that we'll dive into today, you never know what it's going to come back looking like. You can call out blue, you can call out red, but
you lose a lot of control in the process.
Yeah, like you're the builder, but then all of a sudden you become the customer because you're having to go to a vendor. And at that point in time too, like we didn't have a lot of structure to what the finishing program looked like. And to be honest, when I got started as a builder, it didn't really seem like something that I needed to actually like, I was like, I'll just just paint my bikes black.
It doesn't seem important at first when you're just engineering the chassis, but then when you realize you're trying to build a brand and run a business, it adds
matters.
up. Yeah.
So here we are, 2015, in a new shop. Now it's like I have overhead, we have some other things going on. I'm like, okay, we got to figure out how to like make this more efficient, which, I think the first step was to bring paint in-house. Now, whether that immediately led to efficiencies, I'm still not quite sure if that is accurate. But what it did open up is it opened up a whole new chapter for Stinner, right? And we've talked about that. I think the brand wouldn't be here if we didn't go through that process and you weren't a part of that, right? Like you've had a huge hand in like who we were then and where we are today and how that looks from a visual standpoint. I mean, I think I've controlled, for the most part, the aesthetics of what the bikes look like as a silhouette, and then there's a canvas for you to go ahead and execute that side of it. I think you and I collaborate on ideas and like put it on the wall, but then you've kind of taken it to the finish. So, here we are in 2015. We don't have a paint booth. We don't have anything. We start off with a contractor shed in the back of a building, and we put a filter on one side and a van on the other, thinking that's going to be our paint booth, and I approached you, and I think you were looking for, maybe you can explain it to us, but like you were looking for a change, and like, I was like, have you ever picked up a paint gun before? And your answer was,
Yeah, I mean, it's so long ago. I think, like you said, we'd been working together in the shop, in your home shop, and you were looking to take the next step. It made sense when John came in to kind of justify the space. So you were able to take that leap. And in that moment, opening up that space, it kind of indicated to you that if you wanted to take on more orders, you could take on some employees to try and get them done. Fabrication being one arm of it and finishing being the other. And I think you just more or less assumed, because I had an art degree, I could use a paint gun. And I let you assume that. So
I think the first step though, there that was like really interesting was like, I had been struggling with like Illustrator, right? Like that's like how I was like conveying a lot of ideas.
That's true.
Was like, oh, I need to get into Illustrator. I need to design this from scratch.
Yeah.
And
actually, now that you say it, it was kind of the reverse. It was almost the Illustrator was a carryover from the motion graphics. So I had a pretty deep skill set there from schooling. And it turned out that was basically the tool we needed to create all of our maskings, all of our assets to create paint jobs, basically how we were going to convey mock-ups. And I guess that really is what kind of got us off the ground to at least like convey design briefs and then take it to the paint booth and basically learn how to deliver them kind of on the fly. But it was pretty open season at the start,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the, designing the paint scheme. And I think that was our shortcut, was that like you had that experience, and then we had the canvas, and it was kind of like, okay, we found a lot of really efficient ways to print a lot of complex masking and like get that done really quickly. This was back in the day. Now AI can do it all for you, but like, wrapping tubing and like doing graphics on those tubes and like getting that to be efficient, and like, we did a lot of math to like figure out how to make those things quickly.
There's a lot of systems behind what looks like a simple paint job.
Yeah, but from I think you had maybe had a little bit of experience holding a paint gun. I had all about 15 minutes of holding a paint gun, and then we kind of had to figure out this whole other like medium, and so like walk us through like picking up a paint gun, not knowing very little, to like kind of that first 6 months, like the learning curve of what that looked like.
Yeah. The first 6 months was, I would say it was interesting, but it probably wasn't too bad because it was pretty basic stuff to start.
That's true.
It was really just kind of like learn how to lay down good primer, learn what products we want to use. That was a big learning curve, I think, to a huge part of the process, is just what products are the right for our process. Figuring out how colors lay up, and how to approach it.
But you didn't feel like you had a lot of like challenges like figuring out how to spray. Like
this. Yes and no. I mean, the interesting thing about spraying paint is it is a pretty good teacher, and that you fail upwards pretty quickly.
Right.
So when you make a mistake, it shows you.
Yeah.
And then you have to learn how to fix it. It usually takes time. So there's a huge incentive to figure out how to not do it twice. So getting the basics down, I think wasn't too rough, and if anybody's out there and wants some tips, I'm happy to give them to you because it's an open book over here. But the spray gun itself wasn't really the madness. It was when we got into multiple layups of colors, different masking techniques, the fades, combinations of those things. That's really when we found, I think, that the variable of the design can really turn paint or custom paint into like a comfortable world or a much more difficult world.
100%. I remember those early days, a lot of reworks and things that we just didn't really like either know how to tackle, or like problems that we didn't know how to like handle.
Just failing upwards.
Yeah. You ended up going out to see Carl at Metal Guru now. I don't remember what it was called back then. Maybe it was still Metal Guru back then.
I think it was called Carl's Special Paint Shop.
Yeah, okay. When he's like one of the few guys that I know that teaches painting, if not the only guy.
Carl's been around before all of us. He'll be around way after us.
He lives on in infamy. And I think you learn, I mean, I don't know, for me, I wanted to get my feet wet in frame building, and like I had some experience TIG welding and cutting and mitering and like making stuff like whether it was in my grandfather's shop or like whatever it was growing up, but like, to get in and just learn the basics, right? Like I think there is a step, you could create a step-by-step process for a lot of these things, right? Like here's how you cut your down tube, here's how you cut your top tube, like et cetera, and like keep it simple. And like I felt like it was wildly helpful to at least get that basic recipe down. And then you can like add in all the complexity as much as you want as you go. And then that's kind of like a choose your own path. But like, I felt like, but maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I felt like Carl laid it out pretty simple for you. Like, and he was like production oriented. So it like kind of gave you the ropes to like know. I can't remember. I think you sprayed like a fade when you were out there or what.
We've been fooling around with stuff. I think Carl was awesome just to have sort of an audit on our process and say, if we were doing anything wrong, what was it? I think the biggest thing that everybody finds with paint is you kind of have to learn the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
Carl was a big help in just sort of like knowing when we were in the correct boundaries and when we were kind of pushing our limits and could just expect things to create problems for us. So it was just a good sanity check on our process overall.
Nice. So you come back, like we start in a contractor shed, we're stumbling along, you go see Carl. I think it was like once you got back, we ended up buying a paint booth, we installed it into the shop, we ended up expanding the shop down like another wall, got some more space so we could bring paint in-house. And I think that's kind of when everything really started to like fall in place, at least from like it being able to like finish a bike and execute, right? Like I think we were still like, you were taking on some, prior to that, it was like taking on some projects we were still farming out, but like kind of tripping over our own 2 feet of like, okay, we got to get this thing down where we can like make bikes, finish them. But it was a pretty fast and steep learning curve, like January 2015 to like April, May of 2015, like all of a sudden we had a paint booth and we were firing. Like
it happened pretty quick, and I think the value add to the clients really accelerated that. They started seeing these different, more varied bikes coming out, more colorful bikes. Like the briefs and the design clearly was kind of showing through in the result. And it gave us the ability to just kind of get a lot of exposure quickly and refine the process.
Yeah. And then at the same time, I mean, Instagram had been around for a few years, but like at that same point in time, I feel like Instagram, like custom paint as a marketing asset for us at that time was huge, right? It's like you can build these bikes and show the craft and like people working on things and like show that romantic side of things. But then all of a sudden it's like to see a finished product in living color. And then like every time you're dropping something, and back then everything was like carte blanche custom. Like I think we had some ideas of like general themes on like what we did, line work, blocking and like that kind of stuff. Fade, we had the fade. But in general, if people came to us, kind of pick whatever color they want. Right. You would work with them on that idea. We would kind of like hustle them along through the process as quickly as possible and making them make a decision. And
we'll explain to them how they were totally happy with what they had selected.
And then every bike that went out the door was like this opportunity to photograph it. You'd put it on Instagram and you'd get like 2,000 likes instantly.
Yeah,
like
everything was a marketing piece, basically.
One photo and like you could just, and I think we got a lot of notoriety in those early days for that work. But I think we ran into, and this is kind of where it gets more into like, the details of paint and like how paint is run. And I think that point in time began our education on like where we are at now, and it's 11 years later. And I think we've learned a lot along that way, and some great stuff, some stuff I would rather not revisit. But I think that lesson and what that was and what it is was pretty profound, and that like I think it's led us to a place where I think Stinner's in a really good place as far as like the products that we're putting out and why we're putting them out there, and then like, and being thoughtful about that. And, you know, over the last short few years here, now talking in 2026, yeah, sure, we have our, you know, our stock lineup, which is like pulling away from that custom stuff. But as we like, you know, go into 2026 and maybe start looking at what the custom program is going to look like going forward, I think we're leaning on a lot of the education that we got over those 11 years, and like how to make paint successful, how to make customers happy, how to make ourselves happy, how to put out our best work, how to deliver a product that's great. And I'd say paint in general is probably far harder from like a creative and then execution and expectation standpoint than like like designing a bicycle frame. Like,
Yeah.
like numbers and fit and those kinds of things, I think, are not easy, but they're numerical, and like they're a little bit more exact and they're a little bit more precise than like paint, which is not. You know, I think you can make it precise.
Yeah, I think it's just the simple fact that the emotional value of the visual impact, it's louder in most people's minds than like,
100%.
you know,
Yeah.
5 mil stack on a head tube.
Yeah. So there we are in 2015. Every bike is its own custom project. And I think, one, we hit a ceiling on like how far that could actually scale, right? Like there's just only so many designs you can do each week, and only so many customers that you can paint a bike for and get them across the line with like a pretty open platform.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, you were kind of just designing from the hip at that point. Like, how did you approach that? Like, what did you?
Well, we tried to build a lot of systems to make it a reliable process. And I think we found that it's ultimately just a very human process. The process is a little bit dependent on the consumer. So for us, I think the tricky part after a while is it was great to build some momentum, to get a lot of attention to us, but by the time everything was a custom project, it became more difficult for us to control our brand identity and consistently put out product that we felt was what we wanted to put out. If it was always somebody coming in with their own idea of what custom could be, we sort of lost the ability to drive what we wanted Stinner to look like in a custom sense. Mm-hmm. So figuring out how to more or less play design color therapist for the client and have them express what they're hoping to feel from the end result, but then also view it through a production mindset and tweak everything to be kind of just right, so that by the time it does flow through fabrication or does flow through paint, it doesn't get snagged on all of these learning curves that we basically fumbled across when we were new at it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize, because you're looking at a design 2D, but everything obviously is 3-dimensional by the time you put it on the bike. And there's a lot of places you can stub your toe there, just saying like, oh, we'll just have a pattern wrap around the tube, and it's not really physically possible. And so you have to create little things along the way to make it work.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we talked about this in the episode where we were talking with Adam and Bradford about custom in general, and like Bradford tends to build from a model-based system. Adam obviously has his like, you know, Taiwanese production bikes now. And I think there is an expectation, even when you're doing custom, to deliver a product that is of production, like mass production quality in a prototype world. Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of customers would come to us and want these unique objects, but then expect the product to be at the level of like a black carbon frame coming off of a Taiwanese line, from a quality standpoint on the paint side. And then,
or a detail standpoint. That was something we had to walk through with clients a lot because of our process being a fully wet paint process. Meaning, and I think maybe people don't totally realize that, but on our full custom bikes and the bikes that Aaron and I are talking about, everything was hand done. There was no stickers, there was no decals that were pre-made. Everything was hand painted on there. That's not the case with the mass manufactured bikes, because it can't be the case because it's way too much touch time.
Yeah.
So point being, I think that you're getting to is comparing those two results is not the same thing,
Yeah.
because that production bike there was a whole entire study and development system
Yeah.
put in place for that to look like what it looks like. And it's just different when you're ordering literally a one-off prototype finished bicycle for yourself.
And it's the same thing like how we were building bikes. Like I couldn't keep building lugged bikes and all these other like one-offs and randonneur bikes and belt drive bikes. Like you can't.
We didn't have space for all the tooling to do it well.
No, and you can't do that because you're not becoming good at any one thing, right?
Exactly.
You're just like you're a generalist. You're doing everything, and I think nowadays if you go to an artist and you get like a helmet painted or you get something done or you get a tattoo done or whatever it is, you're usually going them for their flavor and for their addition. And I think we found that just in the process of going through all those custom pieces, we were starting to identify a visual language that was present in our stuff. And we realized, okay, well, this can't be carte blanche. And so we started to kind of have schemes, right? Like the quad scheme and the geometric. And then I think those things were taking shape in those 2016, 2017 days.
Yeah, just trying to get in front of it. We kept getting clients who were ready for the custom process, but ultimately maybe didn't even want a custom bike. They were just excited about it. And so they said, whatever you want to do.
Sure.
Like, oh, I like these stripes, but different stripes.
Yeah.
And so you're doing micro variations on a theme that we decided to just try and get in front of. It worked pretty well for a little while.
I think so. I mean, you got to we were Chris was with us for a little while and now Chris is back, but we have had a few employees along the way. We were all really young, either fresh out of college or hadn't even gone to college. And we were loved bikes, loved being able to do what we could do, but we don't have we weren't a product managers at whatever, a Nike for 10 years before we came into this. And so a lot of it was coming through with the passion of what we were building in the bike industry and knowing what those and I think that's what's helped us excel through the years is we held those foundational moments. I think a lot of people try to come into the industry with new ideas and then you realize why that breaks. And I think I understood it. I think you as well. And some of the other folks that were on board is that there is a baseline to the bike industry and a homeostasis and you try to rock that too much and you'll fall way outside of the bounds and it doesn't necessarily always work.
There's a lot of history to go off of.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that have been doing this longer than us and built before us, and I think you need to take away from their experiences.
Totally. But I think what we learned a lot then, once we nailed okay, we can weld bikes, we can make bikes, we know what we're good at. We're identifying these models. I think Gibraltar was coming out then. We didn't have the Carrizo yet, but we had the Refugio and the Tunnel. A lot of these models that we've had along the way had been identified. They've been tweaked over the years, but we started to identify model range. I started to identify paint schemes that worked.
Just archetypes of bike too was not really that well defined. You're saying cantilever, lugged era, custom bike, custom frame.
Yeah.
Versus I think moving into like you're saying a custom vehicle, your branded type of bike.
Yeah. Yeah, and real true product development. And it intersected, right? It intersected with the finish, it intersected with the fabrication, and it was giving people a product that they can feel really good about at this price point, and have a result that is predictable for the most part, and especially with paint that's challenging, right? Because color, how do you convey that over a computer screen?
If anyone knows.
Yeah. So whether it's color or design or even things that you have to make up on the fly when you're doing a one-off, getting rid of those variables so that the customer, when they come in, they don't have to say well, whatever you want. You're well, whatever I want is here. And I'm showing you that and guiding you in the right direction, whether it's through the website or however we're portraying that information, and allowing them to get to a place that almost subconsciously they're getting there. They're making decisions and choices along the way, but we've tried to lay the groundwork so that they can go through this process and end up at the other end with a really happy and not well, that wasn't the red I picked, or those, I didn't want the lines there, or the decal's not in the place that I wanted it. And those are all decisions we had to come across as building our expertise and building up our craft. You have to make those judgment calls on the fly when you're doing a one-off. But once you kind of set into the production mindset, you can build a better product that still has customization, but has a better result at the end. And I have felt like the paint has been the biggest navigation of like, because it's 50% of what the product is when it goes out the door at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's the value add is so dualistic, right?
Yeah.
You know, if it's bad paint, your brand is awful, even though your frame is good.
Right.
If it's great paint on a bad frame, you might be able to ride that for a little while.
You look good at the coffee shop.
But I was thinking as you were saying that back to, you know, why did we even bring it in-house? You know, part of it was because we could give the client so much more for a better value proposition, and we could enhance the brand and get marketing out of it for a better value proposition compared to it being out of our control and being in somebody else's shop.
Yeah.
That sort of justified a lot of the learning curve, I think, in the beginning, but we learned to refine it at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think dialing it, trying to figure out where those dials were to get it to an end result that we feel really good about has been hard because it is also ever changing, right? Like it's seasonal to a degree. And it's seasonal, it changes. It's also like what the skill set you've developed is a hard, unless you like really break it down to paint by numbers, you know, it's a hard skill set to transfer over because it is much more tactile and like artsy than it is like you can cut a tube, like we set up a tube, you set up a fixture and you cut a tube. Like there's one way to do that.
It's less straightforward.
Yeah. But you know, with art, I think we've always said like, you know, frame building is more baking to a degree and painting is a little bit more jazz, right? Like it's, you know, like I think,
yes, that's exactly.
Yeah. Like
no, what's the other one? Cooking and baking.
Yeah, it's cooking and baking.
Yeah,
but
not baking and jazz.
Or yeah, no, baking is like, but like baking is more like fabrication.
Yeah.
Like there's a step-by-step process to it, measured out.
Whereas paint's more like a stir fry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I think mixing the paint is obviously like baking. Like you got to get the recipe right. But like once you're in there, like you have a bleed, you have these areas that need to be touched up. Like is the color coming out the right way? You have blues on blacks, like all these things that uncover themselves. And we try to like see all those things out from the beginning before we get into it. But like it's always, you know, you never know. And like it's a challenge. And you know, tape, you know, you guys have been recording in the paint shop, so I'm sure there's plenty of footage that folks can see, but like fine line taping and taping that off and like step 1, step 2, step 3, and like every frame size has a different, the decal gets longer, the placement gets different, and it's like, it's difficult. It is not easy.
There's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially once it gets more than 2 colors, it's...
Yeah, and then also understanding what it's doing and like when to add more and when not to add more and when to touch up and when not to touch up. And like, again, I think that's why with the production bikes, we've leaned towards powder and then like blasted finishes and decals because it's repeatable, it's easy to teach. We can bring in technicians and like show them how to do it and be good at it because it's repeatable. But I think what we've always struggled with is like, you know, you get to 200 custom painted bikes a year and it's like, you can only do so many frames per year.
Right.
And we've tried to bring in new folks to like learn. And I think it's a difficult skill set to learn. I think there's like a temperament to it. And then it's like, also like, you've got to really be passionate to like want to figure out, like stumble through those stumbling blocks. Cause you can only, like, you can lead people into like, don't do this, don't do that only so many times, but they're just gonna like, you're gonna have to learn. And there's gonna be painting a bike all the way to final clear and then stripping it all the way back down again, just to have to repaint it the exact same way.
Yeah, there's definitely setting aside your emotions for the process has been an interesting hurdle to try and teach other people. We can give them the gun, we can try and set up the spray gun settings perfect, we can try and get the shop perfect.
Right.
Conditions as best as can be. Stuff still happens. Yeah. It's a sensitive process, and you kind of can't go in with any room for disappointment to that process.
Right.
You have to just keep your head down towards the end result and not get stuck in the weeds. And it's it's a particular temperament for sure.
Yeah, I mean the high variability of what the craft is difficult. Even if you break it down into like we have 4 models and 3 different colorways, like there's still that variability is still really high. You know, like, and so I'm excited to dive into more of that as we like kind of look at what our custom process is going to be in the future, what that looks like. Obviously you guys, the viewers, are going to be along for the ride as we kind of create this new program. It's not going to deviate heavily from like where we are now, but I think it's going to be just tightened up. I think, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts and like, obviously we have kind of our what is it, flagship products, right? Like we have the fades, we have some geometric stuff. We've been doing those for a long time. We have a pretty deep color bank. I think like probably could trim that up a bit and be a little bit more like...
Yeah, I don't think people need all those colors.
No, and we'll do another episode to dive into color if we really want to, because like, when we were just talking about like training a technician to like paint custom, like there's that challenge. There's also like such a challenge in educating a customer like that is coming in like so green, and it's not their fault, but they're coming in and like they don't know anything, and like we would have to dedicate 300 pages on the website to like explain all the different nuances of what it is. And so I think we could do better with that, and hopefully with a new video of like breaking down color, how you choose color, why you want color, and like where you can get that from, just to make it digestible. Because I do think when we had custom paint, that was a place that we lost a lot of customers on, they were so psyched to get to that point, and then you're like, okay, pick a color, and then like you don't hear from them for 3 weeks, and you're like have to check, and you're like, is everything okay? Like, oh my god, I went to Bed Bath and Beyond, and I'm like, I saw too many colors, and you're like, I don't know, do I want, and you're like, there's an easier way to digest this and like get through it.
We've used the restaurant concept a lot over the years, and without getting into the weeds on that, I think the oversimplification would be like if it was a pizza shop, you can totally pick your own toppings.
Right.
Limit 3.
Yeah.
You don't get to pick what grain the dough was cooked with. You don't get to modify the dough recipe.
Yeah.
Like by the time it's so deep down that, the client, you've kind of screwed them over, because now they have to go do all this research. To figure out how to make a right choice, when really, if we just give them the right amount of options, they can feel comfortable taking the product away from our establishment.
Yeah, and then no one's happy, right? Like you're not happy because you're painting something that you don't feel like identifies with the brand and what we are, but then like also the customer doesn't feel like they're getting something that's fully like what they signed up for. So I think laying, exciting stuff for going forward, like, and I think we've already gotten there. We're harping on a lot of stuff from yesteryear. I think we've done a pretty good job putting our flag in the sand. We've also, with all the stock stuff that's come out over the last 2 years, it's going to be exciting to kind of see what we pursue with custom going forward and like what that looks like. Because I think what I'm excited about, and maybe you can tell me a few things that you're maybe hoping out of it, but like, I think we can elevate the product to a degree from a design perspective and a color perspective. I think our customers trust us a lot more to guide them in that way, and like also like identifying what those are and then maybe changing those out annually so they're like something new to explore and something new to see. And I think that program can continue to evolve. I do feel like the hand-built industry in general, and I think it's something that you and I need to sit down, and I'd be curious to see what everybody else thinks, so throw comments down in the comment section, because like what custom paint was in 2015, what custom paint was in like 2019, and then going into COVID, like that all changed dramatically as well. And like where does the industry sit with like custom paint now? I feel like it's gone through like this weird metamorphosis. Like if you look back at 2015, it was like, it was kind of exciting times for custom paint. Like it was like this like,
it's sort of looped out on itself again, hasn't it? Like
to a degree.
2015 was a lot of like, let's do some old stuff mixed with some new stuff. Let's just do some new designs no one ever did. Because,
razzle dazzle.
Yeah. Because
80s streamers. Like, we have all kinds of stuff. Rain camo.
Fades, textures, Galaxy bikes. I remember Galaxy bikes.
Tons of Galaxy bikes.
There was a lot of weird stuff going on. It's kind of explored all of that, and now we're back to kind of the starting point again, where people are sort of grabbing at everything. But what does that actually mean for the consumer? Like, where do we actually want to sit right now? And for the next, maybe, it's not forever, it's like 3 to 5 years, and but trends change.
Yeah, totally.
It'll move on.
Yeah. Well, I think we're like, history tends to repeat itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see it in music, you see it in all this other stuff. It's like 20 years later, and then like it's starting to regurgitate itself again.
My gut says it's Klein fades.
Klein fades.
Yeah,
all
just
day.
tube to tube,
Yeah.
different kind of fades.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do think the comment section should let us know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like, I don't know, I'm excited to see what it is. I think the industry's changed. The new consumer has like a different understanding of like what that is. Like, I think handmade, whether it's a bicycle or a bag or a whatever, has changed over the years.
Sure.
Like Etsy was new back then. Like all that has changed, and it's like, it's really cool to see where it's going. And then like with our skill set now of being able to do production, being able to do stuff at scale, like what can we replicate? What can maybe we like train other people to help us with, but still provide an extremely high level product that is unique to the customer, but also is like a seamless buying process, right? Like, you want something that's unique to you that you get to identify with, but then also at the same time, like you want something with a predictable result. You want something that has a predictable result, because that will result in a better finish and a better product.
And just a predictable experience for everybody involved.
Yeah.
I think kind of to your point, we had a lot of wild paint jobs back in the day, and there were a lot of great customers that made it through that process, but it was definitely a process depending on what the paint job was.
Oh, yeah.
And you get this crazy result, this show bike result, that people are like, wow, I want that thing too. I'm going to come to this brand for it. Can you tell me how you got here? And they go, well, it is awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. No, it's everything that you see. Exactly.
Yeah.
But getting there is, just, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
It was tricky.
Yeah.
So making that a positive experience and having it match the results so everyone's delighted, I think that's our goal in 2026.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'd love to see, like, I mean, I think we can look back through the process and probably identify which bike was at what year. Like, we were just looking at a photo an hour or so ago, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that bike, like, and I think it like identifies a point in time. And it'll be cool to kind of see how we layer that on going forward, because like stock is fun. We've had a lot of fun with it. Like I'm really amped on it. We're working towards getting bikes in stock and getting customers happy so they can call us and get a bike and get that returned. And that customer is looking for a different buying experience than the customer that's coming in and wants something truly unique, which
a lot of people are coming in needing different things from it. And I would say there's probably a lot of us just need a good quality vehicle to ride around on. And
totally,
the finish isn't a major component in why they're purchasing it.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked that we can offer that now. We never used to be able to offer that.
Right.
And it took us, you've said it in other episodes probably, but it's taken us this long to unlock that.
Yeah.
It's been a really tough nut to crack to be able to produce bikes consistently in the frames with the finish to be able to hit a price point. So I think for anybody who was maybe disappointed to see custom move away or change or become less prominent, I think it's really just because, like Aaron's saying, we've been getting our ducks in a row and sort of learning from the experience so we can give the most to the client in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was a huge fear in like doing that, right? Like, oh my God, am I cannibalizing what we started? And I think you and I have both been in the position of like, well, growing and adapting and doing that is important. Staying the size of what we were back then was also had huge challenges, right? Where like everybody's doing everything and like paint is carte blanche, and like just trying to figure that out was hard too. There's a lot of pros back then, but I think now being able to offer a product that's off the shelf and then getting to re-explore what custom is. And I would argue that like rethinking that and reimagining that is actually probably closer to what we actually want than what we wanted then, when you're like, well, like we just have to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight 2020, sitting where we are now, maybe we could have approached it some different ways back then, but it was the same way for you as a builder. Like you had to take on those lugged bikes for a minute. You had to just work your way through it because it showed your ability to solve the problem.
Totally.
But once you've kind of cut your teeth long enough, it's time to stop messing with the complicated projects and kind of get down to what you're good at.
Yeah, and I think that's been the cool thing too, is like, just to kind of wrap it up too, is like whether it's paint or it's fabrication, the bikes that we're building today, even the stock bikes that are going off the shelf, are like that growth that has happened. We're making the best bikes. I believe that we are making the best bikes that we have ever made today.
I know that we're making the best bikes.
And I think that is what is really cool. And like, whether it's a stock bike or what will be the custom, we obviously still offer custom. So if you wanted to go on the website, you could buy a custom bike right now. But I think as we kind of reimagine what custom is, it's going to be even better than what it was before. And that's what's really exciting. Like those are the things that like keep me wanting to work on product and keep iterating and keep making it better. And it's the small incremental changes that we've made with Stinner along the way. It's like, our bikes are clean and classic and simple. Like I think if you look at a bike from 2017, like although things have changed, probably like post mount isn't a thing anymore, or like these kinds of things. Like there are antiquated things as far as like drivetrain and brake selection, but otherwise you could take that bike and put it side by side with a bike that we're making today, and there's a timelessness to it, right? Like there's a timelessness for that product, but also I can tell you like that the new bike is just a better bike than what we built then.
100%.
And the nuances of that is, I think, I nerd out on and I dig, right? Like
Absolutely.
It's like, it's the Dieter Rams stuff. It's like all that stuff, right? It's like small incremental changes that are like meaningful and practical, but have design in mind. And
I think for both of us, despite not being fully classically trained in like brand management, was you and I trying to figure out how the brand will sit as a legacy long term.
Totally.
And what aesthetic values speak to that, and what, mission statements speak to that. Like what contributes to it being a timeless product, because we can all think of certain bikes or handmade bikes where it's almost just, not a tragedy, but it's a disappointment that this high quality frame, like you're describing, almost gets made to look old or made to look worse because the finish doesn't reflect it as something current or something you'd want to be seen on. It's like being able to deliver a custom finish yet still have it be timeless for the client who's buying this bike to have one last bike the only Thai bike they're ever going to purchase. Designing it in a way so they're happy 5-10 years from now, and it still reflects well on us. That's been the trickiest thing to crack. Part of why maybe we've withdrawn a little bit from it, but definitely why we're excited to kind of relaunch it.
I think it's super challenging. And as you progress, I feel like the amount of change that there is, like it decreases. Like it's the small little incremental changes that feel monumental, because like those small changes, like you're like, I'm dialing in a product that I feel like is already pretty dialed, and then you're just like continuing to layer it on. And I don't think there's a need to be like, sure, we'll do a marketing bike in like bright pink or like something crazy, and like
there
that's
will
just
always
for
be
fun.
show bikes.
Sure. But as far as like what a customer is going to deliver, you're like, how do I keep iterating on a product without like, and we don't have to do some crazy arrow thing or like go over and do this like other crazy thing, because we're building something that is refined, and we're continuing to refine it every day. And like,
you should be as happy to have version 25 as you do version 65.
Totally. Yeah. Cool. That was a lot of stuff.
That was a lot of stuff.
I don't think we dived into anything specific, which was like kind of the intention here. I think it was to like talk about paint in general, and for everybody to get to know you. I did a lot of talking, but I think we kind of laid the groundwork of the history of what we've been working on. I'd love to hear what you guys have mentioned. We'll answer any questions you have down in the comments section. James can jump in as well if you guys have any like technical specific paint questions.
Yeah,
get in there. And anyway, we're excited to do more. I think we're going to have more paint series as we go along. You guys have probably been noticing a trend. We got like product videos that we got coming out. You know, we're going to have a new Romero episode here soon. But I want to continue this similar conversation, similar vein with paint. And as we develop these things, maybe we'll talk with you guys a little bit more, get you guys behind the scenes. If there's other stuff you want to see in the shop or what we're working on, like we're an open kitchen, I think we'd love to show you guys around and get you guys inside and see how the sausage is made, as they say. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you, James, for staying late and hanging out with us and talking all things paint. Excited to talk to you guys more about this stuff. And remember, like and subscribe. We'll see you guys out there. Thank you.